I love Star Wars The Old Republic, man. Released in December 2011 from the hands of BioWare with a stamp of approval from LucasArts, Star Wars The Old Republic is an MMORPG set 3,600 years before the events of the Star Wars films, and 300 years after the events of Knights of the Old Republic, BioWare's previous Star Wars title. At this point, BioWare had just come off of making Dragon Age 2 and Mass Effect 2, so if you have any familiarity with either of those two franchises, you'll know what to expect from the writing. BioWare was on a hot streak in the late 2000s and early 2010s, and they didn't miss here. Star Wars The Old Republic has 8 classes, 4 on each side, Imperial and Republic, and to simplify, 2 melee classes and 2 range classes. Each side has their respective Jedi and Sith, a soldier, and whatever flavor of mercenary each side wants to hire, and yeah, they're mirror classes, so you can have the same shit on both sides if you really want, but I'll give my limited views on gameplay in a minute because in the grand scheme of things, I'm a pretty casual player compared to a lot of the active player base. A lot of the active player base left is obviously pretty dedicated. That's kind of just how MMO player bases are, but a lot of the people I run into have legendary status on their account, which means they've completed all 8 class stories. While I have like 170 hours on Steam, I think I've only completed 2 of the stories, and this is also my like 3rd account, but I don't remember the old ones I made when I was younger. I didn't end up completing a full story until like 2 years ago, and as a kid, I wasn't really interested in some aspects of the game, but I did love Star Wars. My dad put me onto Star Wars when I was a little kid through the movies, but more importantly for me, the Clone Wars. My dad was a big Star Wars fan. He was growing up when the original trilogy came out, and by the time I was born and growing up, it was the second big cultural wave of Star Wars. The Clone Wars was such a large part of my introduction to media in general, and it left a lasting impact on me. The Clone Wars offered a grittier look into the world of Star Wars by following the cast of their wartime efforts between episodes 2 and 3. I mean, there are definitely some goofy episodes within the series, but a lot of it's pretty harrowing and illustrates the horrors of war through the Star Wars universe. Through this, there's so much development for characters that aren't necessarily hollow, but really gain a lot from seeing them interact with the cast more. A perfect example of this is General Grievous. In Revenge of the Sith, we see him as this Jedi-killing general who keeps lightsabers as trophies and is finally stopped by Obi-Wan just before Order 66. But we see in the Clone Wars how much of a fucking issue this guy really was. He may only carry 4 lightsabers, but he kills probably 40 Jedi throughout the Clone Wars. And we see the countless encounters between Obi-Wan and Grievous throughout the war that makes their final fight in Episode 3 so much better if you know the history between them. Star Wars The Old Republic offers the same atmosphere as the Clone Wars does, but in such a different context and environment that it's extremely refreshing to be in. It's another war between Sith and Jedi, but with each side in dramatically different conditions. Get ready for a lore dump. Star Wars The Old Republic takes place 350 years after the Great Sith War, where the Sith were assumed to be destroyed, but this is never the case, and the Emperor is still at large. Darth Vitiate by title, Tenebrae by name, the Emperor has been around for a long time at this point. Darth Vitiate was forced to put the Order into hiding, but he has been active. He puts into motion the next major galactic conflict, the Mandalorian Wars. Vitiate was able to convince Mandalore the Ultimate that he would be able to defeat the Republic if they went to war. So to war they went. The Jedi, still rebounding from the Great Sith War, were not willing to join the war effort, but not all the Jedi agreed. Namely, Revan Malak of Knights of the Old Republic fame joined the fight and become heroes among the Republic, turning the tides of war. Their war heroics culminated in using the Mass Shadow Generator, pretty much a planetary implosion device, to win the last major naval battle, and going on to defeat Mandalore the Ultimate, ending the war. During Revan's bout with Mandalore the Ultimate, he learned that the Sith had convinced them to go to war. With this information dropped on their heads, Revan and Malak would embark on a quest to find the Emperor, which would prove fruitful. They would find the Star Forge, ancient Rakatan technology with the capacity to provide infinite energy for its cultivators. This would also lead them to the Emperor on the new Sith capital of Dromund Kaas. After some careful planning, Revan and Malak would confront the Emperor, but would ultimately succumb to his power, being brainwashed and tasked with creating a new Sith Order. And just that they did, creating a Sith Academy on Korriban and taking any and all comers, Within 50 years, the Sith were back and ready to fight again. This would culminate in the Jedi Civil War where Revan and Malak would take on the Republic. The end of this war would see a similar turn as Revan would be captured and re-brainwashed back to the light and would go on to kill his lifelong friend Malak, ending the war. You should go watch a video or two on Revan. His story's kind of insane, but this leads us to another sliver of peace in the galaxy as the Sith are not fully gone but back in hiding once again. This time for about 275 years, building strength and numbers across the unknown regions to one day strike again. This strike would be on Korriban, reclaiming the Sith Academy and sparking war. The Empire would spread throughout the backwaters of Republic space, swallowing territory until they made moves on important Republic worlds. But this would cause the war to stall, and peace talks were in the near future for both sides. The Empire had its territory and really no more resources to continue spreading its claws, and the Republic would not be pushed any further. These treaty talks would come forth on Alderaan, but before anything would proceed, Darth Malgus would launch the sacking of Coruscant, demolishing the Jedi Temple, and with this blow to the heart of the Republic, they had no choice but to concede to the Empire's conditions. And this is where we pick up in the tremors of galactic war and the uncertainty that follows. This is where we come in, becoming involved in a cold war on either side, one reaching for more power and the other trying to pick itself back up. This is where I'd like to introduce our hero, Gerald Pork. The Sith warrior Gerald Pork aims to be the most reasonable man in the Empire, and his kindness and mercy will be unmatched. I chose Sith Warrior because my last character, Dick in Your Mouth, was a Jedi Knight, and I enjoy playing melee classes more than I do playing ranged, and I just wanted to see what playing the same class on the other side was like. It's been pretty cool noticing the similarities between the two and the differences between being on the side of the Republic versus the Empire. But for Gerald Pork, our story begins on Korriban, arriving at the Sith Academy as Overseer Tremel's secret plan to prevent another student from advancing through the Academy. Tremel insists on the purity of Sith blood, even though he's not an actual Sith by race, and large portions of the Sith regime aren't either. And in fact, most of the Sith race was wiped out in previous wars anyways. But Tremel is our introduction to the politics and the undermining of the Sith Empire. Our competition is very aware of what we were brought in to do and immediately does his best to get us killed. Gerald Pork, being the woke moralist he is, tries to avoid all conflict and spares anyone who isn't an asshole when he's allowed to. Star Wars The Old Republic gives you a lot of freedom inside your own class story. Whether you want to be evil or be good or do whatever you feel like doing, it gives each class a lot of replayability for an MMO. For my Jedi Knight, I was pretty split on my decisions, so it didn't really feel like it changed too much about the story, but for Gerald Pork, I really felt like my light-sided choices had a big effect on how the NPCs and my companions acted towards me. But back to our introduction. To ascend past our synthetic rival, we need to pass the Sith trials at the Academy. From torture to grave robbing and some combat testing, we rise through the ranks and get some attention and some watchful eyes on our back. During these trials, I was given my first companion, Vet, a Twi'lek who was captured running a job inside of a temple I needed to find a lightsaber in and imprisoned. She arrived in my care after I needed a guide to help me through the ruins, and to the temple we went. We maneuvered through the temple and finally found the lightsaber I was looking for and headed back to the Academy. One of those eyes I mentioned earlier belongs to Darth Barris, and he had learned of Tremel's undermining and sent me to kill him. Barris tells us that for proof, we would need his hand. We relay this to Overseer Tremel, and a fight is in order. Tremel falls to us in combat, but we spare him and take only what we need and try to arrange a way for him to get off-world. With Tremel's hand, Barris is pleased with us and advances us to the last step, a sort of battle royale in an ancient Sith temple. The goal is to find the artifact inside the temple, and with 6 others looking for it, only one can bring it back. Among the challengers is my rival, who will most likely be looking for me down there. We cautiously set off to the temple and deal with the other test takers along the way. Ultimately, we get to the artifact first and take it back to Darth Barris. As we arrive, our rival is close behind, and Barris proposes him a challenge. Kill me and the artifact is his. This is a fight we gladly take, and cut him down without much resistance. On death's door, our rival begs to keep his dignity intact, and we grant him his wish. Barris likes what he sees from us and grants us a promotion. We become his apprentice. With the promotion comes our own ship, and Barris tells us to meet him on Droman Kos. The ship kind of becomes your own personal hub where all your companions are, and it's how you kind of get around everywhere. The ship is also where the game does a lot of its expose for story missions, moving from planet to planet. And just to touch on some MMO gameplay stuff, this game's tab target, and the combat is all ability based, and each class has similar structure and resource management. This isn't really going to be a gameplay review because I don't have a nuanced opinion or that much experience, but I'll say my piece now. Combat can get repetitive as you go along, but it does stay satisfying once you get cooler skills visually and, see bigger numbers on screen. Combat is serviceable, but there are definitely some details and system quirks that are really well done and are worth talking about. First, each planet has a level cap, and all players and missions are scaled to it. I don't really know of any other games that do this, and it's pretty underappreciated in this game. Keeps every area challenging, but doesn't really strip you of your strength because you keep all gear and abilities while scaled down. It's a nice touch that makes going back to a planet not boring because you become a god in comparison. Another thing to touch on is that this game is subscription based, but all story content is free. The only gameplay you don't get access to is the DLC, which is good, but you're also given 600 hours minimum of free content, which is a shit ton. You do take an XP gain bump, but it's easily made up for by, just joining a guild or using the boost the game gives you plenty of. Overall, the monetization is maybe the least predatory of any MMO on the market, and that's special among its peers. The last gameplay thing I think that is worth talking about is the map. This is the best map in video games. You may ask why. It fades when you move so you can see where you're going, overlaid with a map. It seems really simple, but this shit is fucking awesome. You know what else is fucking awesome? Companions. The companions work pretty similarly to other RPGs, where they'll approve or disapprove of actions and things you say, gaining or not gaining influence. Each companion can be leveled to level 50, and all of them have their very own side quests, and about half are romanceable, depending on your character's gender. A good example of how the influence system works would be if I was in a conversation and someone brings up enslaving a prisoner. Vet, the former slave, doesn't really like it when your character says disparaging things about other slaves. This is pretty cookie cutter, but you can really read all the companions pretty well. Be nice, they like you. If they're evil, do evil things and they'll like you. It's pretty simple, and obviously some of the companions are more palatable than others. I mostly liked all the Sith warrior companions, and I'll get to my favorite eventually because she was very story related, but as a Jedi Knight companion, I couldn't fucking stand Doc. You pick him up on Balmorra after saving him from the Empire and helping his patients, but he is the most obnoxiously cocky character you run into during the whole Jedi Knight campaign. For me, he's worse to listen to than most of the fucking Sith Lords you work for during the Sith warrior story. And those guys are supposed to be ignorant and pompous. But as a whole, the companions are great and can add a lot of depth to your actions and your playthrough. And speaking of a playthrough, let's get back to Gerald Pork's story. After leaving Korriban, Gerald is sent to meet Barriss on the Sith capital of Dromund Kaas. Dromund Kaas is such a stunning environment for an MMO and captures the gloom of the Empire perfectly. This is where we're introduced to the First Planet storyline. These are separate, longer, faction-specific stories located entirely on one planet and run parallel to the locations you need to go to for your class story. Most of them are good and pretty interesting, but leave some of the freedom of choice behind due to the more general nature. For example, Dromund Kaas asks you to infiltrate a splinter of Sith and Jedi called the Revanites. This group is full of Sith considered traitors by the Empire, and you're asked to find their leader by completing their trials and joining their society. The Revanites follow the teachings of Revan, who I shed some light on during the lore dump a couple minutes ago. The Revanites follow the ideals and insights of Revan in his years after the war he started and ended. You know how I said he was brainwashed back to the light side and his memory of being evil was gone? Those memories started to come back years after the war, and with them, the hunt for the Emperor was back on. But with his regained knowledge of the dark side, he had new insight of which neither side could possess without the other. Within that insight is where the Revanites find their compass, and overall, it's super interesting to play through and learn about. While you complete the Revanite trials, you learn and understand what they believe, and eventually you get through it all and are given a choice: rat them out or lie to the Empire. Gerald leaves them to their devices and tells his handler that everything's been dealt with. To be honest, I wish this mattered more across the entire story, but it doesn't, and that's kind of how every Planet storyline plays out. Sometimes they're interesting, other times they're boring, but you always need the XP from them, so you're gonna do them. I'll be talking about all of them because they are worth talking about, and it wouldn't be right to talk about this game without them. But moving back to the class story, Barris is trying to pull the strings around the Empire and Republic alike through his personal network of spies, and he's caught a Republic agent who almost outed one of his pawns and is torturing him as you arrive. He can't get him to talk though, and he needs us to find an ancient torture device called the Ravager, and on the way needs us to deal with a political rival of his. First, we have to go deal with the other Sith Lord, and Barris suggests that we go after his son, so we do just that. Gerald Pork breaks into the Sith Lord's base and confronts his son and wife, and after some neglected suggestions to talk and an ensuing victory for Gerald, we let the Lord's son live and agree for him to don his father's mask, and let the wife take over the political side. Then we go deal with the Lord. Gerald Pork does not care for evildoers and dispatches them handedly, returning our promise back to the family, leaving them in charge. Next, we move on to the Ravager, looking for it deep within the Dark Temple on Droman Kos. Eventually, we find it and return to see it used on the poor Republic agent who is already on death's door. The Ravager essentially uses dark side power to melt someone's mind to obey the wielder. We learn through this interrogation that a Padawan is behind the exposing of Barris's spy network, and she has a special power to see the nature of somebody's soul, light or dark. This Padawan's master is a Jedi named Nomen Karr. The agent dies soon after telling us, and Barris shows his first sign of panic. Nomen Karr happens to be the one who put Barris in his mask, so they have some history. For Barris, this is a big problem, and he's sending us to do some damage control and tie up loose ends before Nomen Karr gets to any of his other spies. So, he gives us a list of places to go and who to deal with, and sends us to the spaceport. Balmorra is first on the list. Balmorra is a droid and arms manufacturing planet which has come contested between Republic and Empire. This conflict has led to some skirmishes between the sides, and the place is a bit of a shithole. Our target is the Resistance's Commander Rylon, Barris's secret agent. Once planetside, we meet our contact, Malavai Quinn, an officer currently stationed on Balmorra under Barris's command, and he tells us that to get to Rylon, we should go through his son, but there are some complications. Namely, Nomen Karr has sent a Jedi agent to get to Commander Rylon first. So, Gerald sets off, breaching through the Resistance to get to Rylon's son. We reach him and interrogate him, and he actually pisses and shits himself as we pry information from him. Gerald spares him out of pity and gets to his father. His father's a seasoned Imperial spy and has served Barris for more than a decade at this point, and he saw this coming down the road. He asks us if his son died on his feet like a man. Gerald tells him yes, but now one of us must die to maintain the cover, and Rylon will die on his feet if he has to. After the fight, the Jedi spy shows up and says that he's already sent word to Nomen Karr, but Malavai Quinn interferes, blocking this call, and having a squad assist us in dispatching the Jedi. After dealing with the Jedi, we return to base and Barris hollows into us, asking if Quinn has served us well after we debrief him on the mission's success. Gerald, being the honorable man he is, compliments the usefulness of Officer Quinn, and Quinn gets a promotion from Barris and decides to join our squad as head pilot and overall plan guy. Our crew gets larger and Quinn becomes one of our rostered companions. I'll keep it real, I'm not touching on Balmorra's planet quest. All you do is do favors for the military, helping them capture a droid factory and kill resistance leaders. It's interesting the first time you play a planet mission like this, but you'll see a different flavor of this almost everywhere on either side. Again, it's not awful, but there's better versions of this later. One thing you do take away from your time on Balmorra is just how brutal the relationship between the Sith and the Imperial Army is. I mean, just looking at Commander Rylon, his readiness to die and complete acceptance of what a spy does for the Empire, especially for a Sith Lord, is somewhat telling of the whole military. Even Barris himself tells you how much of an asset he's been for him and the unparalleled value he's brought to the Empire, but it doesn't matter. He must die for a Sith Lord's plans. I mean, you as the player character can also be an asshole to troops, and everyone you talk to in the Imperial Army calls you Lord even though you just got out of the Academy an hour ago. The Imperials are merely pawns for the Sith, which is such a massive juxtaposition from how you work with troops on the Republic side. Just another reason to play both sides, I guess. Next up is Nar Shaddaa, a Hutt slave trade hub on a moon of Nar Hutta, a true neutral space in the galaxy ruled by money and money alone. Nar Shaddaa is a massive, sprawling city run by local gangs and huts alike, and honestly, one of the prettiest environments in the game. Gerald arrives to find that Barris's spy has fled to the protection of an upstart Sith Lord on Nar Shaddaa named Rathari, who has been assigned by the Dark Council to negotiate with the Hutts. Our contact suggests going through his slave trading business to get to him, so we get to work. After going through his chain of command and fucking with his business a bit, we eventually get to Rathari, and he's with our agent of interest. As you could have guessed, a fight breaks out, and after the ensuing combat, and a gesture of good faith, Rathari does Gerald's job for him and kills the undercover agent. Rathari, feeling the shame of his loss, puts his life in our hands, and Gerald, being the sweetheart he is, spares him and moves on. Nar Shaddaa's planet storyline puts us inside negotiations between the Imperials and the various crime lords of Nar Shaddaa. Primarily, an organization called the Exchange has rejected the Empire's offers, and we've been brought in as muscle to change their minds. This brings us to a meeting with our own allies, the Shadow Syndicate, who, of course, sold us out to the Exchange. In floods their goons, and after defeating the assailants, we get sent after the Flame, some supposedly immortal gang leader. We try to make dents in the Flame's business to make him show, and manage to track him down and get an audience. We confront the Flame, and after beating him, are given the option to either kill him or tell him and his gang to go off-world and figure it out somewhere else. We tell him to go figure it out somewhere else, and then get sent across the city to aid an Imperial operation. This operation has us sent to investigate a compound where Darth Revan sealed away some slaves and some ancient technology. We managed to break our way in, and there are Ongri slaves who are still alive inside. They're assigned to be the keepers of the Infinite Engine, which is still running inside the complex. The Ongri detail their story to us and ask them to let them be and accept a small seed to bring back to the Empire. The Infinite Engine is a sort of biomechanical engine that is constantly growing by feeding it force energy. Whether it's people or other sources, the engine will continue to grow forever once nurtured, so Gerald accepts the Ongri's deal and brings a seed back for the Empire. Once returning with the seed, we hand it off to the captain, and he sends us to investigate an infiltration into the Galactic HoloNet hub on Nar Shaddaa. We link up with the hut that controls it, and he tells us to destroy the whole place. Once finding our way inside, we meet the security breach, Axis, a being who's trying to gain all information in the galaxy through the HoloNet hub. We speak to Axis, and we're given a dilemma whether to destroy the whole place like the hut wanted, or fake it and leave the backups on for Axis, who will swear his allegiance to the Empire and give us his information. Gerald sides with Axis as the deal sounds pretty useful and saves a life in the process. After getting paid out by the hut, we finally head back to our ship. In my opinion, the Imperial planet storyline on Nar Shaddaa is just way better than the Republic side. Maybe it's just because I think Revan is cool, but between the Infinite Engine and Axis trying to gather all information in the universe, it just ends up being more interesting. The Republic side sees you do pretty much the same thing as the fight with the Flame, but with the Mountain, who is way cooler to be fair. The Mountain has the same hype around him and is legendary for being everywhere at once and being invincible. Turns out that it's a group of identical quintuplets, and you have to fight all of them just to end that section of the quest. It's kind of sick, but after that you just have to deal with more gang shenanigans and save some race from being exterminated. It's just less interesting comparatively because the Old Republic is at its best when you get these crazy ass lore drops. Nar Shaddaa has 2 Revan-based flashpoints, and in the one I've played, you save him from a jail deep within Nar Shaddaa. I played that shit a while ago, and I was honestly blown away by it. It's my favorite flashpoint in the game for sure. Nar Shaddaa might just be the best planet of the game in general. It's just cool as fuck. There's even a casino section that you don't go to on the Imperial side, which is another one of the coolest areas of the entire game. Everything from the surroundings to the missions just makes Nar Shaddaa fantastic. But, unfortunately, we must leave Nar Shaddaa and go to Tatooine. If you like Star Wars in any capacity, then you have a good idea of what to expect. Sand. But there are some interesting things buried within the sands of Tatooine, and that's what the planet storyline focuses on. We help out research efforts on Tatooine, but accidentally unleash an ancient curse on the locals. That curse is a disease of Rakatan design, so we have to track down this ancient Rakatan temple and destroy it. This is a, grand oversimplification, and honestly, the planet storyline is pretty fucking cool, but this is where the class story really picks up for Gerald Pork. With Barris's spy network secure, it's finally time to hunt down this Padawan that's been giving him fits. The first lead is about her old master dwelling somewhere in the wastelands of Tatooine. Our idea is to trace the Padawan's footsteps across the planet to try and end up on the doorstep of the Jedi Master's house. First, we get pointed towards the Sand Demon, one of the first challenges the Padawan went through on Tatooine. The Sand People have leads, but they need to see something from us. They will have seen enough if we enter the Sand Demon's lair and come out alive. We go into the Sand Demon's lair and try to pacify it, but Gerald Pork's not exactly an animal whisperer. The Sand Demon is one big bastard. He takes a minute to bring down, but we eventually kill him, getting coated in its blood. This satisfies the Sand People, and they lead us to a location called the Oasis. The Oasis is a spiritual sanctuary that serves as a mirror into the soul of Force sensitives that go there. While inspecting it, Gerald is confronted by the darkness in his soul and is asked a set of questions about what his motives and beliefs are. Gerald's doubt manifests as it tries to cast a shadow over his mind. There's weakness and compassion, fury and force are the only way forward, but Gerald is set in his ways. The purity of his soul shines through and he defeats the evil deep within himself. After Gerald conquers his soul, we are presented with a new lead, getting us one step closer to finding Master Yonlock. After some investigation, we get led into the desert to a small house containing the Master and his Padawan. Finally, we've gone somewhere, and all this work seems to be paying off. After Balmora and that nonsense on Nar Shaddaa, we've grown tired of being Barris's lapdog, and this may be a step towards getting away from Barris, one way or another. Ideally, we'd like to find the Padawan without really making any waves to our master and hopefully contact her and collude with the Jedi to get Barris killed. With this plan in mind, we try to get any information we can on the Padawan from her old master, and he already knows why we're here. Gerald tries to reason with Master Yonlock, but he is, understandably, hesitant to work with us. Negotiation breaks down and Yonlock knocks out my companion and he and his Padawan come to blows with Gerald Pork the Honorable. This fight is like the first time I died on this fucking account. You don't really remember how much you're getting healed until you, aren't. So I got shredded the first time and had to leave and reset. I did forget to pop all my status abilities the first time, and when I ran it back, it was way fucking easier. After defeating both of them, Yonlock's Padawan, in an attempt to save their lives, which aren't in danger, tells me the name of the Padawan we've been tracking, Jason Wilson. Yonlock then proceeds to use the Force to wipe his entire memory and tells me to kill him and let his Padawan go. Gerald doesn't really give a fuck and spares both of them and shames Yonlock for doing all that for no reason. We tell Yonlock to contemplate his life as we head out the door and go back to the spaceport. With the new information from Yonlock, we return to our ship and brief Barris, and before we know it, he's already tracked down where she's from, Alderaan. Alderaan is one of the core worlds of the Republic and much more political and bureaucratic than anywhere else we've been yet. The Republic and Empire have their footholds in the two main houses on Alderaan, House Organa and House Thule respectively. Most other houses align with one or the other, except for a select few who had decided to do their own shit. Politics aside, Gerald Pork has been sent to Alderaan on other matters. After figuring out her name from Yonlock, information has been much easier to come by, and Barris was able to trace her and her family back to her homeworld. Now, we have a rough idea of who to look for. Our target happens to be a noble of House Organa. Interwoven with our personal exploits, we end up in the service of House Thule, beginning with rounding up some Republic-sympathizing nobles and then saving some observation posts from droid attack forces. When we return, a strike force is apparently inside of a tunnel connecting the House Thule Palace and a random Organa-sided house. Now it's our job to stop this attack and seal up the tunnel. While House Organa and House Thule are in constant conflict, neither of their lines are being led by Republic or Imperial forces. Alderaan is evidently insistent on being self-servient and not succumbing to either Republic or Imperial representation at the top of their government. This bureaucracy sort of keeps Alderaan stuck in constant conflicts between their own people, but hey, at least they're not involved in galactic war. Next, we get sent off to go deal with House Olgo and a Killik problem. Killiks are a monstrous bug species that operates with a hive mind that seems to be able to indoctrinate people. We have to go find a strike team that was captured and are most likely dead or at least not human anymore, as well as some Thul's daughter who was with them. By the time we get there, few are left, and those who are in cages, and the daughter is a part of the hive mind already. Either you leave her or try to take her back to her dad. Frankly, if I saw my daughter come back as some hive mind bug thing, I would have rather not seen her again. Gerald Pork the Honorable decides to leave her there and lie to her dad as we get back, and almost immediately we have to go steal a bomb from House Olgo. House Olgo is one of the few houses off doing their own shit that I talked about earlier. House Olgo sees what's happening with the two main houses, and their leader has decided that they should both be eradicated and has a big-ass bomb for just that. We need to go blow it up in their territory. Surprisingly, quick job, and after we get done with that, there's of course a security breach, and House Olgo has information headed home that will be damning evidence against House Thule. This group of contracted assassins has it, and we have to stop them one way or another. We track them down to a house, and they're not exactly happy to see us. We kill whoever wants to fight and let whoever wants to live leave. These people gotta figure it out, man. With that loose end tied up, we're sent off to go mingle in some on-world politics and jostle another house into aiding our cause as we finally move on to killing Boris Olgo, House Olgo's leader. Boris Olgo has apparently usurped the throne in a non-Alderanian way, and many people have an issue with this, including us now. We have to go deep into Olgo territory, and confronting him feels like playing a fucking Destiny strike. We have to fight him, then go take down some shields protected by ads, and then finish him off. We end up sending him to prison to be judged by the other houses of Alderaan. With that taken care of, let's get back to what we're really there for. Our search has led us to General Giselle Organa, who we think Jace's parents work for. Unfortunately, they don't anymore, but she will tell us where to find them if we help her out with an attack House Olgo is leading on House Organa. Gerald Pork, finally being given a good deal by somebody, gladly goes and helps out the Republic strike team that is stuck dealing with the Olgo droids. We save the entire strike team, and they greatly appreciate it, and so does Giselle, who tells us where to find Jason Wilson's parents deep within Organa territory. We travel there and jaunt past the layers of security to find them and their lord with her personal guards. We confront the Wilsons to get any information, which they don't have any. If you know a bit about how Jedi operate, you know that when the children are brought into the Jedi Order, all connection is severed with their previous life. Because of this, the Jedi have a bit of a reputation of being baby snatchers, but they do this young because the longer the kids live in the world, the more emotionally attached they are to everything in their life. All this is to say, we aren't really there for information, but we were instructed to go kill her parents due to her Force-sensitive bonds with people. Gerald Pork isn't an asshole though, so we compromise to buy them out of servitude and send them to the Empire, in good faith towards Jace. Luckily, we don't have to fight anyone here either, as somebody finally opens their ears and doesn't try to kill us. With her family in tow, we return to our ship, and Jace sent us a private holo message asking us to meet. She found out rather quickly about what we did for her parents, and she's beginning to see that Noman Carr is using her for his own personal problems, namely dealing with Barriss, and she wants us to meet without either of our masters knowing. Well, it seems like we might be on the same page after all, and I'm looking forward to this. While my hopes are high, I have an odd feeling that this won't go through. We're given a rendezvous location, and my hunch is right. It's a trap. We travel to a Republic cruiser, so definitely not her personal ship or anything, and it's loaded with Republic troops who we just have to fight through until we get to 2 Jedi Knights waiting for us. We strike up a friendly conversation with them, and they let us know this was a trap. Yeah, thanks for telling me, man. They proclaim they will defeat us here, dealing another blow to the Empire. Gerald Pork, with his pure heart, tries to talk them out of a fight, and for once it starts to work. We express our reluctance about fighting and would, really prefer to leave if we could, and one of the Jedi agrees with our sentiment, but the other one unfortunately does not and is adamant on fighting me. The other peace seeker leaves his partner to it, and now it's just us versus him, and of course we whoop his ass. With our business done, we go back to our ship, and we have a holo call from Darth Barriss. Noman Carr has finally reached out to settle things between the two of them on Hutta, and Barriss, like a pussy, tells us to go handle it. Gerald calls Barriss a pussy to his face, but he sends us anyways. This isn't the worst thing in the world, though. Maybe we can get Jace and Nomen Kar on our side along the way. We travel to Hutta, the aptly named Hut homeworld, and it looks as green and stinky as you would imagine. I think bounty hunters and Imperial agents start on Hutta, which would be an appropriately shitty place to start, as the Republic gun classes start on Ord Mantell, another war-torn shithole, but anyways. We reach the safe house, and Nomen Kar is in fact waiting for us. We of course try to reason with him, but he says that no Sith could ever be reasonable. They are all conniving and plotting people, and there's nothing good that can come from me and Jace speaking with each other. So, we must fight. Nomen Kar rushes at us as we dodge and counter, chipping away at him. We finally get the best of him as we take a second to catch our breath. Surely Nomen Kar will understand us better on his knees, but wait, he's not staying down. Nomen Kar restores his strength and gets back up, telling us he underestimated us the first time. We exchange again, and he's not pulling his punches, but it's not enough to get the best of us. We put him down again and close in, but he's not done yet, and he's powering up, but that doesn't look very Jedi-like. Consumed by his rage and fury, he rushes at us again, and he's noticeably stronger, but we stand tall. His swings have gone wild and imprecise. The master looks more like a student from the academy, and his technique's gone missing. We find an opening and land a fatal blow, putting him down for good. Finally, we address him from the floor, and he's gone white and his pupils have gone yellow. He looks more like a Sith Lord than a Jedi Master. He's frothing at the mouth in disbelief, demanding that we put him out like the evil we are. Before we can make a decision, Jace Wilson shows up at the storehouse, bewildered to see her master in such a decrepit state, and us standing over him. Finally comes our chance to speak with her, but she's on edge. Nomen Kar tries to get her to attack us, pushing his Sith are evil narrative, of which we're probably the exception, and we tell her how it got to this point. The arguing culminates in a suggestion to use her abilities to see the true nature within both Gerald Pork and Nomen Kar. First, she peers into her master's soul. She sees the anger, the rage, the envy that has torn through him, and it haunts her thoughts. Taken aback, she shifts her vision to Gerald Pork. The purity, mercy, and kindness we've shown our entire lives, it stuns her. But it shows her the truth, and in her anguish and confusion, she asks to join us. Surely we can lead her forward. We agree and accept her as an apprentice of our own, but still lies what to do with Nomen Kar. Kill him, send him to Barris, or ship him back to Tython to repent and reset. We decide to send him back to Tython where, hey, maybe he'll spread the good word about us, and Jace joins our team as our third companion. As we get back to the ship, word has obviously been spread to Darth Barris, and he has a present of sorts for us, a promotion to Sith Lord. That promotion also comes with a vacation away from the Empire. Thanks, Barris. Just to expand on Jace a little more, she's definitely the most interesting companion you get as a Sith warrior. There are two versions of her you can get, and obviously we got the light-sided version. They have two completely different personalities and storylines, and the light-side one's been pretty fucking cool. I had a conversation with her that dealt with what my intentions were inside the Empire. So, essentially what we intended to do as Imperial light-sided Force users. We agreed on an effort to reform the Empire from within its top ranks, but more importantly, using Jace's ability to seek out Force users to find more Sith akin to the light. This is one of those cool interactions that makes the character unique, and you get to see it expand further as you go through the game. I guess I really haven't touched on my other companions yet in the video. The one I used the most was Vet, and yeah, I'm trying to fuck the Twi'lek. I won't lie, once I got Jace, I had a real 10-minute debate with myself about who I should try to romance, but I stuck with Vet, mostly because it was way further along, even though she's not super interesting. She is extremely palatable though, which made me not really care as much about switching. Back to Jace though, much later she ends up finding another light-minded Sith somewhere throughout the galaxy and tries to meet up with them, only for it to result in a fight we don't see, but she seems really torn up about it. From what we gather, the other Sith didn't believe Jace and attacked her, forcing Jace to kill the other Sith, but we encouraged her to continue seeking out more throughout the Order. She does eventually end up finding an instructor in the academy on Korriban. We insist on them meeting, but before she gets there, the instructor was apparently found and his students were taken and brought into torture. Jace goes to stop this and ends up defeating the Sith and prisoner in a supposedly extremely traumatic battle, which she won't expand on at all. That's the furthest I got, and apparently most of the other content is post DLC, which I haven't played. Regardless, this is the depth of like every character in the game. Shit's special, man. While we're at it, this is also a good time to touch on some like actual MMO content. I took a bit of a break on Tatooine to do some actual MMO stuff. Shit like daily heroic missions for some gear and some public event grinding. The public events only appear on certain planets, so I figured I might as well check them out, and they're pretty similar to Destiny public events in practice, so they're pretty fun. I think the reason you do them is to unlock an account-wide companion, although I haven't really looked much into it, so I could be wrong. This is a story video after all. The coolest thing I did on Tatooine was the world boss, though. I got a random invite from somebody trying to get a squad together, and I said, nah, why not? We got like 15 people together, from lower level players to maxed out legendary accounts, and grinded out a world boss. These things are cool as fuck, and are like a real challenge due to the planet level scaling. Every attack from the boss was doing like 25% to our tanks and like 45% to me, and I think like half our team died. But after 15 minutes of doing boss mechanics, we finally killed it, and everybody gets a like really rare drop. It can be anything from legacy cosmetics to good-ass gear, but it's extremely worth it. It's also just refreshing to take part in after grinding story for most of your playtime. But it's back to business as usual, but now we're dealing with some real Sith politics. Darth Barris has his own master who has won Darth Vengeance of the Dark Council, and he wants to start war once again in the galaxy. Most of the Dark Council doesn't really want to do this for various unexplained reasons, but in classic Sith fashion, Darth Vengeance is trying to get some folks killed to make a war effort look much more appealing to the Dark Council. I keep bringing up the Dark Council, so I might as well explain how the Sith side of the Empire works towards the top. Unlike the modern Sith, there's a lot more of them, and the rule of two isn't really a thing yet. So, there's a 12-seat Dark Council, and then the Emperor who rules above them. The Dark Council makes all big decisions and leads at the head of all military operations, where all council members are equal. However, the Dark Council answers to the Emperor's voice, who is an appointed council member that is, well, the Emperor's voice, meaning that these are the Emperor's orders. This will matter later, as currently in our story, the Council does not have a voice among them. The Emperor's voice is only a thing because Darth Vitiate is not present and is always meditating because he's like 1,000 years old. The Emperor has his own secret organization called the Emperor's Hand, and he has his Wrath, who is his direct apprentice, who outranks the Dark Council. So essentially it goes Emperor, Wrath, Voice, then the Council in pretty close succession. So to get a war started, a majority has to agree, and Barris's plan is currently to kill a Republic general, who we somehow know is meeting Imperial traitors on Nar Shaddaa. So, it's our job to find them and deal with them. We go to Nar Shaddaa and find the Imperial deserters and Republic General Karsten's gone, getting some information from them. You can guess how this goes, and we end up killing him after a big fight. Upon returning to our ship, Barris has a holo for us. We're told that the Council is not convinced by the Republic's loss in leadership, but now it's time for Plan Zero. Plan Zero's idea is to target a bunch of the Republic's top leaders and commanders to really swing a potential war in our favor. Barris has 6 targets for us, and the first 4 are on Terrace, so we know where our next destination is, but this does make me wonder how high up Barris's spy network runs if we can just pinpoint generals and admirals and send my dumb ass after them. But anyways, it's off to Terrace, a once prosperous world ravaged by the Empire and Darth Malak 300 years ago in the Jedi Civil War. At one point, Terrace was a planetary metropolis, and you can see it at its best in the Knights of the Old Republic games if you go back and play those. Now though, Terrace is a swamp filled with debris and military wreckage populated by rat ghouls and refugees alike. The Republic still supports Terrace, and they have a military presence on Terrace, mostly helping with rebuilding efforts. This doesn't really explain why 4 of the Republic's top generals are on Terrace at the same time, but whatever. The Empire has its investment on Terrace in stopping Republic reconstruction and generally keeping this place as depressing as possible. The planetary storyline has you dealing with Republic installations all over the place until you run into a rat ghoul problem. Rat ghouls are mutated people and animals that fell victim to the rat ghoul plague. These things overrun the planet, and it happens to be the Empire's fault. The rat ghoul plague was engineered and released on Terrace to really fuck the place up, and it worked. Our involvement with the rat ghouls involves trying to turn them against the Republic by using chemicals and waste to repulse them from our area and into theirs. Another consequence of the rat ghoul plague are the net ghouls, who are apparently force sensitive, and we have to stop a Jedi from training them to use the light side of the Force to help the Republic fight the Empire. It's kind of wacky, but it's pretty interesting that this disease can still allow force sensitivity in its hosts instead of turning them all into these ugly mush creatures who can't think. We fight the Jedi training them, and after beating the Jedi, Gerald Pork recruits the net ghouls to the Empire and the dark side of the Force. We aren't done with alien species yet, because now we have to rout an insurgents of Cathar who are determined to take Terrace for their people. We have to go fight their leader, Bashoon, and after a scrap, Gerald Pork spares him and tells him to go find another planet to settle on instead of killing him. There's also one more reason we had to go fight this guy. We had to go save Thanavesh. Thanavesh is essentially our rival on Terrace and is the apprentice of the Sith we're working for while we're on the planet. Your relationship can go one of two ways. You try to fuck, or you tell her to fuck off the entire time. I found her annoying from the first time I met her, and I really couldn't wait to get rid of her. Gerald Pork the Honorable may be the nicest Sith in the galaxy, but he cannot stand annoying broads. Finding the Cathar leader wasn't our issue at first, but then she got captured, so we had to go handle it. She got captured by the Cathar, and you get the choice to free her or let her sit in jail, and you can guess what I did. Unfortunately, it's a shitty prison, and she's back by the time we do our final mission. Our efforts to cripple the Republic have led us to make an attack on their spaceport to prevent their retreat. We're accompanied by Thanavesh and fight through a shit ton of Jedi security to find the head of the spaceport and take him out. We fight him together and get access to the spaceport's controls and are given the choice to let the refugees go or trap them all. Obviously, we let them leave, and Thanavesh happens to have an issue with that. This gives us our chance to fight her, and Gerald Pork catches one of his only unforced bodies as we execute her as soon as possible. Getting back on our actual class questing, all we do is show up places and kill people. It ends up being pretty uninteresting as all the generals are like the exact same guy. They'll defeat you in the name of the Republic and are unwilling to be captured, so you have to kill them. Unfortunately, this plan is just kind of whatever in the grand scheme of things and is just more memorable on the Republic side. It does look good though. Finally, we get back to our ship after a hard day's work, and Barriss tells us that we have a beat on one Admiral Monk of the Republic in the orbit of Quesh. Since we have the jump on him, there's no better time than the present to get busy. We pull up and there's a full-fledged space battle happening, and we board one of Darth Vengeance's ships and repel the Republic invasion, making our way to the bridge. Once we get there, the commanding officer is mad at us and thinks we're there to kill him. Frankly, I don't know what's going on, and the general's too settled in his belief and attacks us. We body his ass and head down to Quesh looking for Admiral Monk. Quesh is a swamp planet and produces venom for various uses. Adrenals, poisons, elixirs, whatever else they make with it. Knowing this, you can probably guess who runs the place. Hutts. And specifically a group called the Three Families, who are 3 Hutts the Republic partnered with to get assistance distilling Quesh venom for adrenals during the wartime effort a couple decades ago. Another issue with Quesh is the fact that it's poisonous to humans and most of the alien races in the galaxy. Side effect of the venom, I guess. So to even get down to the planet, you have to get vaccinated at the spaceport. Once down on the planet, we set off after Admiral Monk and track him down to a bunker where we finally get to have a chat. He reveals that, oddly enough, he's one of Barriss's spies and begs for his life in the process. This is one where you really have to question how deep this shit runs. He hasn't had an issue with telling us to go kill his spies before, but why propose him as a target when you really could have just had an even deeper mole once you clear out more military personnel? And no wonder we could track 4 generals and commanders to Terrace randomly. This had to be the guy behind it all. But what about the space battle we waltzed in on, and why was Vengeance guy so scared of us specifically? Did Barriss sell Vengeance out while also alerting Vengeance of Admiral Monk's attack? I assume each side thought the other didn't know, but did Monk rat about being with Barriss to Vengeance commander who we had to kill on the ship? Is that why he assumed we were there to kill him? Who knows, but Barriss mission by mission seems like he's more and more of an issue. Well, with one more loose end tied up, we've handled our business on Quesh, but, like a good boy, I did the planet story before doing my 1 class mission. The planet story is all about the 3 families in the Quesh venom supply. We start as we land on planet, and I guess I forgot to mention, this place looks like it came out of my ass. It's brown and green, and so are its inhabitants and products. Our first mission is dealing with a Quesh venom factory. You're given the choice to either kill the scientists or destroy the machinery. dark or light, so you know what Gerald Pork did. This earns us a visit with the three families. They're not happy we destroyed their factory, and they tell us they're gonna kill us. Classic Hut stuff, and in vintage Hut fashion, after we get off the holo, one of them has a deal with us to get inside their palace if we take some of his adrenal to pass through security. He's joining us, citing bad business sense from his brothers in arms, but I would never trust a Hut. Instead, we decide to assault the palace head on and break our way into their throne room, where two of them are still there. The third got a whiff of this and managed to get out to one of his venom refineries. The two left here are the one who betrayed them all and the last head of the three families, who sets up a big shield around himself. The one cooperating with us tells us to fry him alive, and as Gerald is staunchly anti-slavery and trying to crack a former slave, we fry his ass. The other one tries to get buddy-buddy with us, and Gerald Pork, galactic rights activist, slimes him out too. One more left and we track him down to the Venom Refinery, where he has Republic and Jedi assistance. It doesn't matter as Gerald's woke fury cuts through the lines and we finally get to the last Hut and his Jedi protector. We tell the Jedi we're not there for him, but he doesn't listen, so he must join the Hut in death. We kill both of them and that's it for Quesh. Overall, not the worst planet, but we will be coming back to it soon, unfortunately. It's not a bad planet questline, and, you can build relations with the Hutts if you want to, but fuck them. I will say, Quesh's missions are pretty close together, which is nice. MMO travel distance isn't something I've touched on much, but it can really fucking suck sometimes, especially in this game because the maps are pretty big. The scale of the maps makes most of the maps pretty sick, but it can be costly on your sanity when you have to walk 5 minutes back and forth from quest locations to turn shit in and vice versa. Luckily, speeders and mounts do help a bit, but you have to pay for speed upgrades and it gets fucking costly. Like 600k credits for level 4 costly. For a free account, that's a lot of money. The actual mounts aren't really that expensive and go for like 20k for some cool ones in the in-game market or like 30k at a vendor. Can't really speak on the galactic trade market too much because most of the economy is endgame based and I'm not quite tapped in. Seems to be thriving though, and that's usually a good sign. But back to Gerald Pork though. It's time for our last target, Jedi Knight Zerander on Hoth. We're looking for him because he's looking for some ancient powerful Jedi shit somewhere buried on the planet. Hoth is pretty close to how you see it in every other piece of Star Wars media. It's an ice-covered tundra and there's lots of pirates. The Empire really has no reason to be here, and that's communicated to you by the people you work with planetside. The Empire is only here to make the Republic lose as much money as possible doing nothing, and most of the people stuck here aren't too happy about it. Once you arrive on planet, you're outfitted with warmer clothing, which is a cool detail, similar to how you have to get a vaccine to get on a Quesh. Just another example of how well this game builds atmosphere and settings, but once we get our clothing, we learn that there's some absent leadership in the Imperial ranks on Hoth. This disappearance is also extremely common, as we'll be looking for people constantly on this planet, and it does make sense. The conditions on the surface are so brutal that they can't even get communications between bases that are pretty close by. So when someone goes missing, it's pretty hard to get a hold of them again without sending someone looking. Currently, the vacant seat is Colonel Vanis, who was in charge before he went missing, and we think the Talls have something to do with it. The Talls are a fur-covered alien race who have allied with the Republic on Hoth and are pretty similarly outfitted to the desert people on Tatooine. They have their own tech and shit, so it's a chore to deal with them. We believe the Talls got to Colonel Vanis, and they're asking me to go find him. So I set off, and yeah, he's dead as fuck. Upon returning, I tell the two people who asked me to go do this that they are in charge. What's interesting is that one of the officers is a Chiss, not a human. As I've mentioned before, the Empire is comically racist, and having a Chiss as a commanding officer is a real concern from other Imperial soldiers. Gerald Pork is the most progressive man in the Empire, and the Chiss guy just has better ideas than the other one, so we side with him every single time. We run some other errands for them, like sabotaging Tall's communication stations and stealing some of their supplies, until we have to deal with them trying to blow up our generator. This is a big issue, as no power on Hoth means you freeze to death, so we need to go stop them. We deal with it pretty easily, and once we get back to the outpost, we have a decision to make. Imperial higher-ups are checking in as they were told about the base maybe freezing over, and without a commanding officer in charge, somebody needs a promotion. They consult me on this because I've been working with the two guys left to do the job, and the Chiss guy is obviously more qualified to lead a base than the other guy is, so we give him the job and move on to another base on the other side of Hoth. They also happen to have a generator problem as a local gang is taking control of this one, and we need to get tapped back in. Local gangs have become a thorn in the side of Empire and Republic alike, as there isn't really the manpower on the planet to do anything about them. After removing the local gang, we get our conduit reattached, and we have to go save another generator as the Republic is going to go blow up the other one we've been using. We pop in to defuse some bombs, and this generator has its own set of Ortolan mechanics. These little guys are awesome and are the ones keeping the generator up and running. You're given a choice to kick them out or save them. If you kick these little guys out, you're an asshole. And Gerald Pork the Honorable keeps them employed and protects them from the Republic forces flooding into the reactor. We survive the attack and get back to base and are assigned to deal with a local gang which has been ambushing our speeder units. They're called the Hailstorm Brotherhood, and we end up getting invited to their hideout on top of some big-ass ice mountain to go fight their leader. We march up there and get taken to a dark cave where we have to duel with Master Sav. He seems to think he's invincible due to his extreme resistance to the cold, but he gets his shit pushed in and the gang decides to fuck off planet and go somewhere else. At least they're out of our hair as we get assigned to another base on Hoth who, not surprisingly, has pirate issues too. This time we have to deal with the White Maw, which is a pretty big pirate gang in the galaxy. We happen to have an in to a meeting that has all their higher-ups attending, and we need to find some crazy-ass droid a guy named Lorimar developed. Apparently, this is a war droid of unmatched engineering, so the Empire would like to have it. We swoop into their meeting after taking control of a shuttle and eventually get to the droid, which gets turned on and told to kill us by Lorimar. So we have to destroy it, and after a little bit, we manage to take the droid down. That concludes our planet questing on Hoth, and overall it's pretty interesting. The Hailstorm Brotherhood shit and the Chiss versus Human Command narrative. The former touches on a pretty interesting quirk of the racial relations of the Empire, which are obviously drenched in racism, but that's besides the point. Later down the line, they seem to care a bit less. I mean, for example, General Thrawn is an Imperial hero, and he's Chiss, and there isn't much racism towards the true-blood Sith within the Sith Order. It's just interesting to see how it develops as time passes between settings. But, moving on to the class quest. Once we touch down on planet, our contact is missing. Because of course he is. So we go looking for him, and the Tall's got his ass. But we do learn that Jedi Knight Zerander and the Republic have hired the Talls to help them against the Empire. So we go after some of them to find information on where Zerander is going. The issue is, there's another Talls hunting the Talls that we're after, and he has a cloaking device. A really good one at that. He tells us to let him work, essentially, and stay out of his way. Cool with me. We didn't end up finding out where Zerander is going, but we happen to learn where the whereabouts of Barris's old lightsaber is, and it's getting sold on the black market by the Talls. Barris wants his sword back, so we go and intercept the deal, outbidding the other buyer. A diplomatic attempt that ends in a fight because it always has to. Getting Barris's lightsaber wasn't the only thing we got out of this though. We did find where Zerander is going, and how to find him. He's going to an old wrecked ship called the Star of Coruscant, which contains the cargo he's looking for. The cargo happens to be a guy, and that guy is Jedi Master Wilet, who's been in cryostasis for a long time. Barris apparently has history with him, as once Barris was defeated by Wilet in combat. How fucking old is this guy, man? And how does he keep getting his ass whooped by anybody and everybody? Nevertheless, we need to go kill Zerander, and probably before he wakes the other Jedi up. We end up being a bit too late as we walk in on them talking to each other. That Talls with the cloak has been following us around, and we convince him to help us fight them as we take them on 2v2. After a long hard battle, we win and kill Zerander in the process, but the old master is still alive. We talk to him, and he didn't even want to be woken up, and tells us that he found peace in the Force while it kept him alive, stuck under the ice for however long he was there. Gerald Pork, tired of the bloodshed and quite frankly fascinated by the old master's story and experience, decides to leave him as the cave was becoming unstable anyways, and we needed to leave. The cave collapses as we leave, and the old master has been sealed away to his own devices once again. I wonder what becomes of him after this, but our business here is done. And more importantly, Plan Zero is completed. But it's time for one last play. With Plan Zero finished, things are heating up. Getting back on our ship and hopping on the Hollow, Barris is calling us back to Droman Kos for one more task, but we can't discuss it on the ship. So we travel to Droman Kos and make the trek to Sith HQ and into Barris's quarters. The final task is to kill Darth Vengeance, Darth Barris's master. Seems that removing a large chunk of the Republic's top guys hasn't swung the Council very much, and Barris thinks Vengeance is to blame. Vengeance isn't pushing hard enough, and in Barris's eyes, it's time for him to go. But how are we just going to kill a Dark Council member? With the help of his apprentice, of course. The plan is to get into his office and break through some security until we can get to Vengeance's apprentice, Lord Drog, who has the key to get into his personal chamber. So we do just that, and goddamn, this guy's office is fucking massive. This shit is the size of like whole facilities we fought through on other planets, and why does this guy have his own set of ray shields and droids to protect himself? I know the Sith are paranoid by creed, but what the fuck is this guy's problem? We break into his quarters, and Gerald Pork and Lord Drog face Darth Vengeance of the Dark Council. Darth Vengeance isn't surprised by Barris's treachery, but he is surprised to see who he sent. Gerald Pork and Lord Drog don't really look the part, but there's no time like the present to make a name for ourselves. Vengeance spews lightning from his fingertips. His control over the Force is not something we can replicate. While Drog is pinned down by Vengeance incantations, we find our way close to him and graze him, barely missing his head. We demand attention, and that lets Drog close the gap as well. With the two of our strengths combined, we bring him down. But not done yet. Darth Vengeance pushes us away and tries to regain his strength. We're beginning to understand how to work with each other, and Darth Vengeance has no choice but to use his blade. His problem is, he's not practiced. We find another gap, but he shoves us away once again. He's hurt and on his last legs. Drog and I rush him down once again, and Drog does the honors of killing his own master. We've come out on top and opened a spot for Barris on the Dark Council. Not my favorite idea, but a transitive promotion for us, so who cares? Barris congratulates us and welcomes Drog as his other apprentice, and we'll be working together from here on out. He seems chill, I guess, so we don't mind it much, and hey, maybe that'll lead to less bullshit for us to do. Some time passes, and we get another vacation while Darth Barris is appointed to the Dark Council, and when we come back, we have a new assignment. We need to stop a Republic plan to disrupt mining operations on Quesh. Good thing I already did the planet storyline. We head over to Quesh and head on down to the surface and over to the mining facility that the Republic operations team is apparently descending on. We get there and the Republic has been there for a while, and we have to fight through Republic droids and soldiers alike until we get to the main reactor. Apparently, we're too late as they're ready to detonate the whole factory. We somehow manage to talk them out of blowing the place up, and as we're about to leave, we get a call from Lord Drog, congratulating us. Except, he also tells us that he has the real detonator, and theirs didn't work anyways. Drog tells us he's gonna blow the factory up with us in it. But who put him up to this? It was Barris, of course, and Drog sees that it's time for him to be Darth Barris's one true apprentice. We were weak and incompetent anyways. He taunts us as he cuts the call, and it seems like we're fucked at this point. In a last-ditch effort, we try to sprint out the factory as Drog blows that bitch up and we're crushed in rubble and debris. Our vision goes black. Damn, this is really how we go out? The light comes back and two robed men enter the scene. Who are they? Whoever they are, they've come to help us as they remove the rubble and speak to us. If he is the right one, he will make it on his own. Our vision fades for a time, and as we regain full consciousness, we trail the two men to the Imperial base, into a cantina, where we finally get to speak to them. They reveal themselves as Servant 1 and 2 of the Emperor, a part of the Emperor's hand. They want us to become the Emperor's wrath. They see our power and potential as great, and they're giving us a chance for revenge. We accept. For us, this is personal, but Barris has made a claim to be the Emperor's voice, and a large section of the Council is bought in already. So they need us to derail Barris's plans and consolidate all those who are against Barris in the Council. Darth Vowron is the leader of the opposition, and his protection is paramount to Barris not gaining control. Damn! It's a lot of information to take in, and I guess I should start by trying to explain what the Emperor's hand is. The Emperor's Hand is the name for the Emperor's 12 immortal Sith pureblood servants who he uses as his personal task force. They have a telepathic link between them all and operate only on the Emperor's direct will and do the most crucial operations for the Sith Empire. Very few Sith even know that they exist, and that extends to the Dark Council. They're another layer between the Council and the Emperor, and they've become our handlers as long as we're the Emperor's Wrath. The only two we really meet and get to talk to are Servant 1 and 2, and Servant 1 is pretty much the leader for the entire hand. Servant 2 only speaks in riddles and is kind of insane, so we don't really pay him any mind. I've explained who the Emperor's Wrath is before, but this promotion gives us unlimited access to everything in the Empire, and we pretty much outrank everybody now. This is big for us as now we can really fuck Barriss over, and our first mission as Wrath sends us to Bel Savis. Bel Savis is a planet on the Outer Rim known by the Republic for a while and mostly believed to be covered in ice save for the volcanic areas scattered throughout the planet. Recently, Republic research teams were sent to explore those temperate volcanic zones, and they found various prison complexes initially built by the Rakatans and have now utilized them to hold their most dangerous criminals as well as Sith captured from the war. Bel Savis is beautiful as these volcanic zones are green and thriving, sharply contrasted by the massive ice walls that keep the areas closed in. This planet also makes a great prison as the topography aids in the prison's defense and really makes it hard to get in or out unless you control it. Unfortunately, the Empire does not, and their foothold is high on a cliffside where they can really get in or out a couple transports at a time. Our mission is to directly interfere with Barriss' interest on the planet. Apparently, he has a sister, Darth Ekage, and she was found to be held deep within Bel Savis' prison system. We don't know where she is, but Barriss has a team looking for her, so we're going to tag along and follow them to find out where she's being held, and then go deal with her. Sounds easy enough, and so we head down to our outpost on Bel Savis and talk to the commanding officer of the Sith Lord we're looking for. We demand that he tells us where they are. This is an issue for them because they're under direct order from Barriss to not let any information leak. But we don't really care. We interrogate one of the commanding officers, and he ends up giving us some info, and that gets him court-martialed. Unlucky. But now we know where to go. While we're at the outpost, we check in with the Sith in charge of the base, and he has some work for us. We need to find and free a group of Sith Lords called the Dread Masters. Cool name, but we don't really know where they are, but we do have some ideas how to find out. We need to get to the Warden, and we plan to do that by getting the prison riled up. If we get the prisoners rioting and equip them with some weaponry, the Warden will have to do something about it. So we do just that. First, we steal some Republic weaponry and then break into a carbonite holding facility and free more prisoners. This is working pretty well, but we need some more help and seek out a clan of Trandoshans on Bel Savis and challenge their leader to a duel to gain their allegiance. With an army of prisoners and a clan of Trandoshans, we've gotten the Warden's attention, and we can finally get to him. We break through the prison security and confront the Warden and beat the dog shit out of him. We do give him a deal to get off the planet and give us free roam. After all, we aren't there for him and just need to get further into the prison. He reluctantly accepts and tells us he'll take revenge, but I doubt it. And more importantly, we can go anywhere in the prison without much deterrence. We move deeper into the jail and there's another issue. The key to the vault we need into was stolen by the Eshka. This is an issue because the Eshka should not be out of their cells, and dealing with them is going to be a problem. The Eshka are an ancient race of conquerors who were in turns enslaved and imprisoned by the Rakatans during the Infinite Empire. This means the prison was built for them, and having them not locked up is a problem. And they have our key, so we need to exterminate the Eshka and get our key back. Our plan is to locate their base, which isn't really much of an issue, and then kill as many as possible, including all of their leaders. So we leave a trail of bodies through the Eshka camp and break into their makeshift headquarters, where we kill everything in there and get our key back. With our key back and the Eshka exterminated, we can continue looking for the Dread Masters. This leads us to Vault 914, where the Dread Masters are being held. We make our way into their holding chamber and are met by Republic forces trying to stop us from freeing them, but they're already waking up. We deal with the troops and finally the Dread Masters are awake. These guys have aura, literally, as they're known for destroying people's minds with their force powers and instilling a crippling dread that made people surrender without a fight during the war. Makes you wonder how they got captured, but we send them back to our base to be shuttled to Droman Kos, and that's it for the planet storyline. The Dread Masters look cool as fuck, to be honest, and their armor is like the coolest looking shit in the game. I'm not sure if you can get it, but I'd grind for it if I could. Back to our actual mission on Bel Savis, though. The guy who we got court-martialed told us that Lord Melikost and his forces were headed to the Republic Prison Archives to go look for where Darth Ekage was being held. So we follow them there, but don't catch them in time as they've sealed the record room shut. It looks like they've sealed someone inside of it by accident, and that person happens to be Jedi Master Tims, who's glad to see us and needs our help. He tells us to cut the power to the door, and then we can probably force the door open together. Gerald Pork would love if every Jedi was this cooperative, and we gladly work with him to get the door open. We strike a truce with Master Tims as he knows where Ekage is and was also sent to stop her from being freed. First though, Lord Melikost is on his way to free some Sith assassins to help him break into Darth Ekage's holding chamber, so we need to stop that, and Master Tims will stop them from freeing other Sith prisoners they went after. Sounds like a plan, and we decide to split up and rendezvous near Darth Ekage's chamber. Gerald sets off after Melikost and rips through his forces until we get to the Sith assassins, and they've been freed already. They are a bit reluctant to go with Lord Melikost's men, and once we reveal that we are the Emperor's Wrath, the assassins give Gerald their loyalty. Gerald has no remorse for anyone allied with Barriss after his betrayal and tells the assassins to kill the rest of Melikost's soldiers. They oblige, and with our part done, we go to rendezvous with Master Tims, and he's left us a holocron to meet him further ahead at Ekage's chamber. We proceed, and holy shit, they put her inside of a volcano. Is it ever that deep? We enter and confront Ekage as Melikost releases her from her shackles, and she instantly kills his ass and absorbs him. This looks like it might be tough. Master Tims joins us as we have to face Darth Ekage, and she's radiating potent dark energy. As expected of Darth Barriss' sister, I guess. Gerald and Master Tims are up to the challenge, though. She might be strong, but she's been in jail for a minute, and I doubt Melikost gave her much strength back. Our combined strength is too great as we overwhelm her, knocking her out in the process. Master Tims' help was greatly appreciated, and now we have to decide what to do with her. Tim sees no reason to kill her, and we should just keep her locked up here as it seems to have been working. Gerald has another plan. Any kin of Barriss shall be killed, and Gerald's usually passive stance has become rigid on this as we cut her down to the slight displeasure of Master Tims. He's rather calm about it as, well, it was a Sith Lord we're debating about killing here. Jedi won't be too mad about less Sith around. With Darth Ekage dealt with, this also ends our partnership, which was rather productive for both sides. Master Tims tells us that he's grateful for our help, but next time we see each other probably won't be on good terms. He says he'll spread the word around the Jedi Order and wishes us luck as we do the same and part ways. Bel Savis is one of the coolest planets in the game in concept and art direction, and one of my favorites to play on. The issue is, it takes fucking forever to get anywhere, and you end up spending a bunch of time going from place to place, admittedly in a beautiful environment. The Rakatan-based sections are really interesting, and some of the taxi systems are like Rakatan teleporters, which is pretty cool. Also, my telling of the planet quest is the spark notes. For example, like getting the supplies and freeing the prisoners and infiltrating the prison, then meeting the warden are all different missions. Same thing with the Eshka. All that shit was like 4 missions by itself. The planet storyline takes fucking forever, and it'll kind of be the same in the last 2 planets we go to. First, as Gerald Pork gets back to his ship, he's congratulated by Servant 1 and 2, but there's more to do. Barriss, in his efforts to get the Dark Council to approve of him as voice of the Emperor, he's been undermining Darth Vowron's military efforts on Corellia. Barriss has sent a rather prominent division of troops to rot on Hoth instead of joining Vowron on Corellia as scheduled. By weakening Vowron's strength on Corellia, it will in turn make him look weak as a leader. Strength wins Sith arguments, and for Barriss, this should eliminate the rest of the resistance left on the Dark Council. So our job is to use our newfound military rank to get the Armageddon Battalion off of Hoth and route them back to Corellia. We depart immediately and take a trip over to the forward command base where our troops of interest are. We have a quick chat with the Armageddon Battalion and convince them to transfer to Corellia on our authority and head back to the spaceport. When we get back to the spaceport, we run into a dire scene. Our crew is knocked out, sprawled out across the catwalk, and someone is waiting for us. Lord Drog. He greets us, surprised that we're still alive and have even received a promotion. He reveals to us that Barris felt a disturbance in the Force when we killed his sister, and Barris knew we were still alive. Barris tracked us down and once again has sent Lord Drog to kill us, but this time it's an even fight, and there's no chance we're dying at the hands of this bum. The duel ensues and Lord Drog doesn't have shit on us. Drog hasn't gotten any better and the battle quickly turns in our favor. Our strength is greater, our technique more polished, and as we overwhelm Drog, we throw him over the edge of the railing into the flames that are quickly engulfing the catwalk. We hear Drog's agony as he burns alive as we rally our crew back into the ship and flee the spaceport. Lord Drog may be dealt with, but that only confirms our existence to Lord Barris, and he won't be happy we got rid of his lapdog. Servant 1 shares this sentiment, as our secrecy is gone, meaning that Barris will have a plan to deal with us. Servant 1 says that the real fight will be on Corellia, but we have something to attend to first. It has to do with the last voice of the Emperor, who has apparently gone missing. Missing to the rest of the Sith at least. Apparently the Emperor sent him to Voss to examine a wellspring of dark side energy and has been lost ever since. With our recent blows to Barris's campaign, his eyes are set on Voss as well, looking for the last voice of the Emperor. Our job is to find him first. Off to Voss, and Voss is a mysterious planet run by a society of fortune tellers called mystics. These mystics have the ability to see into the future, and Voss have used them to handle everything from military conflicts to foreign policy. Seems like a good idea to use your ability to see into the future to guide your decision-making process. As you could have guessed, the Voss are highly force-sensitive, with blue or red skin based on gender and these complex orange-webbed eyes that make them unique even among Star Wars aliens. And the planet itself is just as visually appealing. Voss is a largely forested world scattered with temples and harshly contained by almost vertical mountains and cliffsides. The forests are beautiful and rich in color, making it one of the prettiest places you get to play through. And in my opinion, it has the best planet storyline of any of them on the Imperial side. And I'm not going to cover the back half of it. Why? It'd take me long as fuck to do it justice writing about it, and you should honestly just go play it. I will, though, cover the starting section, which makes you go through the Voss Mystic Trials. The scenario on Voss is purely diplomatic from both Empire and Republic. Voss was discovered not too long ago and has been anti-Republic and Imperial for the entire time dealing with them. But both sides are persistent and want Voss to join them. Current issue for the Empire is that the Republic is threatening to expose some sort of Sith treachery to win them over. The Voss also have an issue with their mortal enemy, the Gormak, so we have to meddle in Republic operations as well as assist the Voss in their personal fight. This is cool, but they don't accept our help with open arms and view us as untrusted outsiders, which makes sense. To gain their trust, we're sent to take the Mystic Trials at their Shrine of Healing. If we pass, then we'll be welcomed into Voss society. The Mystic Trials are a collection of tests you have to answer according to Voss code. This code is much less centered around matters of light or dark, but more naturalistic ideas. I mentioned earlier that the Voss trust in the Mystic's visions to guide them on their decisions, but this is true to a fault, and that's shown to you tenfold during the trials. Once you pass, you become a Mystic, and the Voss will listen to you. The rest of the story deals with the Voss's eternal war on the Gormak. The missions are interesting, and the lore you're exposed to is fascinating and poetic. This shit is super well done and worth experiencing for yourself if you haven't already. Moving to what we're really here for, finding the voice of the Emperor. Servant 1 gave us a lead to a Sith researcher who's been studying the Dark Heart on Voss, the source of the massive dark side energy on the planet. We seek him out, and he's lost it a bit. He does tell us that there was a Voss mystic that the voice was last seen with, and we should go looking for him. We end up finding him in a cave and explain our situation. He knows where the voice is, but will need an amulet that he doesn't have anymore to reach him. One part of it is in the Shrine of Healing, and the other is with a Voss commando in the field fighting the Gormak. So we swing by the shrine while we're doing the trials and grab the first piece and head out to the front lines to track down this commando. We find him in a cave with his squad and ask him for the amulet, which he doesn't give to us immediately. Instead, we have to go kill some Gormak as a favor, and we finally get the amulet off of him. With the amulet complete, We go back to the Mystic and he tells us to go to the Dark Heart in the Nightmare Lands. I mentioned the Dark Heart a minute ago, and its dark side powers are no joke as it tends to corrupt everything that's within its sphere of influence. It turns people and creatures into deformed evil versions of themselves and has corrupted a whole section on Voss dubbed the Nightmare Lands. We trek through the Nightmare Lands and into the temple where the Dark Heart resides. The temple's covered in nightmarish beasts and creatures, and we fight through it to some sort of throne room where we finally find the voice. The voice greets us, and he is literally a drone of the Emperor of which he speaks through. The Emperor speaks to us and is glad that we found the voice, but we need to kill this vessel. The voice has been corrupted by the Dark Heart, which seems to be of ancient Sith design, which over time has corrupted even further to the dark side. The Emperor has lost control of the voice, and the voice's body has been sealed to the Dark Heart, so the only thing we can do is kill it. Just as the Emperor finishes instructing us, he's forced out and the Dark Heart starts speaking to us as we're ready to strike the voice down. It's filled with generations of rage and fury and transforms the voice into a nightmare. After a long fight with the Dark Heart, we strike what's become of the voice down and kill the vessel. With one more loose end tied up, we head back to our ship, and the time has come to shift our focus to Corellia. It's time to make our move and stop Barris's plans once and for all. Servant 1 briefs us, and it seems like Barris is getting uncharacteristically antsy. Not that we haven't seen him like this, but we were the ones to take care of his issues before. Now we are his issue, and we know what to expect. Darth Vowron is still our key to all of this, and his seat in the Council is the most important resource for us to thwart Barris. Barris is getting impatient. He's hired every assassin he could get his hands on to try and kill Darth Vowron. Our first step is to intercept the assassins on Corellia and eliminate them as they land. Afterwards, we should meet up with Vowron as he has an idea of what we can do to hurt Barris. So that's the plan when we get to Corellia. But before we can leave, Lieutenant Quinn interjects with some information. Apparently, Barris has outfitted all ships on the way to Corellia with special chips to bypass an Imperial blockade. Essentially, if you don't have this chip, your ship will be marked for death and everything in a parsec will target you for destruction. Lieutenant Quinn tells us that there's a ship around Voss that has the chip we need, so we depart to go poach a security chip. This seems a bit odd that we wouldn't have been told this from the hand, but I guess somehow they didn't know. We board the ship and it's filled with Imperial soldiers and droids that seemed ready for us. We fight through the cargo hold on our way to the bridge, and Quinn stops us before we forge on. Lieutenant Quinn apologizes for having to do this, but he's led us into a trap of his design and summons a droid the size of a fucking shuttle. He tells us that he's grateful for what we've done, but he still serves Barris, and that the codes were a lie to get us in front of this droid designed to kill us. Clearly, he's not very thankful as he sicks his machine on us and we have to fight it off. Honestly, fuck Quinn. This fucking guy was always a pedantic dickhead, and once we dismantle this droid, we're killing his ass. Gerald Pork has zero room for traitors in his personal circle, and as we demolish this robot, we finally get to Quinn. And for once in this fucking game, we can't kill somebody. We berate him and threaten him, but the only option is to welcome him back on our crew. Gerald Pork normally would be a forgiving guy, but we literally saved this bum from rotting away on Balmora, a useless war zone, to take him to the very top, and he repays us by trying to kill us? Obviously, he sold our asses out to Barris and Drag on Hoth, so why should we have to keep this fucker around? Genuinely, it's my only complaint about any of the writing and decision making in this game. And I'm trying to be the nicest guy in the galaxy. Imagine if I was fucking killing everybody. I would want Quinn dead even more than I do as a good guy. But anyways, we're reaching our finale and we've set off to Corellia. Corellia is another one of the best looking locations in the game, and as one of the core worlds of the Republic, it has that polish and sheen that you're not quite used to from the Imperial worlds. Corellia is home to the largest concentration of spaceship engineering giants in the galaxy. It has its share of large cities, but not quite as massive in scale as a Coruscant or Nar Shaddaa, but because of that, it's a bit more lively and not as dystopian. What I mean by this is they have trees and, nature, and it really helps the place look a lot nicer and more pleasant. Because of its age, Corellia has quite the history behind it. Being one of the founding planets of the Republic, it's largely credited with the expansion of known space and, in turn, the Republic. So this world is crucial for both sides. The command of Corellia gives you the access to the largest corporate business center in the galaxy. The conquering of Corellia would be a massive blow to Republic influence across the galaxy. I mean, after all, if the Republic can't protect one of their founding members, how are they going to protect you? The planet storyline on Corellia sees you helping the Imperial war effort, leading strike teams, demolitions, and fighting Republic forces back until you can get them to surrender. Conquering Corellia is a real chore, and this is another planet storyline that's way more interesting to play than for me to explain, but I will touch on one of the last parts of the quest before we get into the finale of Gerald Pork's story. Corellia has an interesting sect of Jedi that have been the planet's personal protectors for as long as the planet has been a part of the Republic. The Green Jedi are a legendary on Corellia and have been their guard throughout the numerous conflicts in galactic history. Getting rid of them is the last step to gain control of Corellia, and there's a lot of them. You have to fight through their catalogs of Jedi history to get to their leaders, and unfortunately, they all have to die. The Green Jedi go down honorably, but in the end are no match for Gerald Pork. The Green Jedi are a pretty interesting idea that I think more planets should have something similar to. I mean, especially for worlds that have strong connections to either side, it's kind of surprising that there aren't more groups like them. Also, immediately after you get rid of them, you get a cool cutscene at the end of the quest line where you get a big celebration and are dubbed the Conqueror of Corellia. Again, it feels a lot better when you actually play through it, but whatever. It's time to get to our finale. We touch down on Corellia and get to work. The hand tells us that Barriss has hired the who's who of assassins and hitmen from across the galaxy, and they're descending on Corellia at their own landing sites. These landing sites are scattered across the city on rooftops, so we need to hurry. We arrive on time to the first rooftop and confront the first assassin. For the pick of the litter, these guys are getting dealt with easily, and after killing the first, we race across the city to another rooftop to catch the second. Another guy who can't fuck with us, and we drop him off as quickly as possible. We hurry over to the last landing site we know about, and nobody's there. Fuck, we're too late. This means that we need to get to Vowron before the hitman does. Vowron has made his HQ in the middle of corporation territory deep behind Republic lines, so this is going to be a bit hard to get there first, but it's doable. We hustle through heaps of droids and Republic forces and get to the building Vowron is occupying, and it looks like Vowron isn't expecting us, as his forces are ready to get rid of any intruders. We need to get to Vowron though, and if that means we have to mow through our own troops, we will. Vowron can't die here, and we rush to the command room, and it looks like he's still safe for now. We finally get through to Vowron that we're here to protect him, and tell him that he has the support of the Emperor. We need his help to get through to the rest of the Dark Council. But as we speak, Gerald notices something odd coming from Vowron's quarters. Someone's decloaking, and that has to be the last hitman we didn't catch. Gerald springs into action and cuts down the assailant, saving Vowron's life. Clearly, Vowron isn't safe in his HQ anymore, and maybe that's our fault since we killed half his men. We suggest that he regroups with us on our ship so we can formulate a plan and consolidate our information. Everyone evacuates to the HQ and the troops are dispersed across the front lines. Once we regroup on our ship, we get into the weeds of what Barriss is doing on Corellia. Vowron reveals that Barriss has spies within the Republic ranks planetside, which isn't very surprising and obviously makes a war hard when your enemy knows all your information. The first step is to get rid of Barriss' spy network so that we can put the war effort back on track. Seems like a job for us, and we leave Vowron in the hands of our crew and go handle these spies. We carry out some quick and dirty executions and retrievals, but just as we finish up, we get a call from our crew. Our ship has been assaulted by another one of Barriss' assassins, and our crew couldn't handle him. They took some injuries, but managed to escape with Vowron alive and well. Our crew fled to one of Vowron's safe houses, and we need to rendezvous there before the final assassin finds them. So we hurry over, and it looks like the injuries weren't too bad to my crew, but I need to be with Vowron at all times so this doesn't happen again. With Barriss' spies dispatched, we have made progress, and there is something that's crucial to Barriss on Corellia that Vowron knows about: the Entity. An ancient Sith Force ghost that Barriss has imprisoned and has been siphoning power off of for a long time now. His uncanny foresight has been fueled by the Entity, and Vowron knows how to free it. If Barris loses the power from the entity, it becomes that much weaker and won't be in the same league as us or any of the council members anymore. With Vauron leading the way, we depart to a hidden corner of Coronet City and through Barris's hidden base and finally into a chamber overflowing with dark-side energy. Upon entering, we see the entity suspended in the air, chained in its cell, and it greets us, begging for its freedom. Vauron begins his ritual, but he's interrupted and trapped in some sort of force field. The last assassin must have trailed us, and sure enough, our assumptions are right as a cloaked figure covered in cybernetic enhancements enters the chamber. But this isn't some hired goon. That's Lord Drog. I thought his ass was dead for sure, but it seems like Barris saved his life and gave him some upgrades. He taunts us for not finishing the job on Hoth and tells us that the force field he trapped Vauron in will kill him and can't be released until we kill him, inviting us to try. If we could handle him when he was at his strongest, a bit of metal won't help him. His deficiencies are still the same. We engage, and while his strength is greater, it won't change the outcome of this duel. We exchange blows, adapting to his speed with every strike until we see his eternal error, overconfidence. With a parry and a well-timed counter, Drog is on his knees before us, and this outcome was never going to change as we end Drog's life. Vauron thanks us for saving him once again, and the entity gives us her gratitude. The entity's been around for centuries and once almost ended the Jedi Order in her day, but has since died and been forgotten, until she was enslaved by Barris some 30 years ago before the Great Galactic War. This servitude is worn on her, and now she only wishes to be forgotten to time like the rest from her era. We will grant her just that as Vauron finishes the ritual and we let her spirit fade away and do as she pleases. With Barris's plan dismantled, there's only one thing left to do: finish the job in person. To do that, we need to get into a dark council meeting, and Vauron can get us through the door. He can get the council together to vote on Barris's position as the voice of the Emperor, and us in the back door as his ace in the hole. With the plan set, all that's left was to get to Korriban and into the meeting. Some time passes, and the meeting day comes. Vauron chauffeurs us into the meeting room, arriving late just as Barris is lobbying to the other members of the Dark Council. Our arrival stuns Barris and raises some questions among the other council members. Vauron takes the floor and introduces us, the Emperor's Wrath, and the council gives us their attention. Barris is a fraud, and now the rest of the council knows. Barris pleads to the other members, trying to save face, but Darth Mar interrupts. If his claim is true, and he really is the Emperor's Wrath, let him show us. Mar proposes a duel. The winner is right, and the other will be dealt with accordingly. Barris begs to the council to assist him in killing us, and some of the council agrees, but Darth Mar shuts this down. One of our own has brought this to our attention. If this council is to mean anything, this challenge must be upheld. With the stage set, we finally get our hands on Barris. We clash as Barris taunts us with our failures, not understanding what has changed. We've surpassed him. We overwhelm him and push him back. His arrogance will not leave him as he claims to have pulled his punches. Unlikely. We clash again, but nothing has changed. We continue walking him down, confidently overpowering him until we find a decisive blow, breaking his mask. His shame on display in front of his colleagues, he erupts in rage, flinging us back. But we've dealt with this before. His cowardice will be his defeat. His plotting and scheming only works from behind the comfort of his mask, his face and his failures on display. He falls to our blade. And on his knees he pleads to the council. He begs for his fellow members to assist him. He is the voice, a member of the Dark Council. Why will they not help? But the games are over. His deception won't continue, and the rest of the council has seen all they need. The Emperor's wrath is the truth, and his doctrine will be the future of the Empire, and change will come. The Empire must move away from the treachery and deceit among its ranks. The Empire will only become great by leaving its dogmatic views behind and moving forward to become greater by any means necessary. Heritage and ideals will be cast away. Merit and skill will be rewarded, but before anything can change, Gerald Pork must decide what to do with Darth Barris. The man who took him from Korriban across the galaxy doing his bidding and rising through the ranks. Carrying out Barris's plans, granting him a seat on the council just to throw him away for a shinier toy. But that would be his undoing, and it's time for revenge. Exile or death, which would Barris hate more? Killing him lets him escape. That won't do. Show him the mercy he despised in me. Let him see everything the Empire will become. Watching our success will tear at his soul. Let it burn him alive. Exile him, and let him suffer. Gerald Pork has ascended, and Barris is no more. Over the months I worked on this video, I kept trying to find an idea, a point, a thesis, but I guess all I wanted to say was, plainly, I love this game. Playing Star Wars The Old Republic let me engulf myself in Star Wars for the first time since, well, I was a kid. Star Wars is a nostalgia factory for me, and, well, it makes me remember my dad. This game captures the happiness and wonder I had watching the Clone Wars with him before dinner as a kid, and to me, that's special. Star Wars The Old Republic lets you make your own story arc, your own book, your own movie. It's just that ability to make your own story, and I think I just wanted to share that story somewhere, and put my thoughts on the game around it. This shit's so special, man. If you give it a shot, you won't regret it. I appreciate everybody who watched all the way through. I mean, shit means the world to me. Next big project will be the Metal Gear 2 video. I'll play that on stream after I get back into all that bullshit, but I'll figure it out. It shouldn't take nearly as long as this did. On the streaming note, I stream pretty much every day, so tune in. Appreciate everybody. 07.